Hello, I'm here with another Q&A. I'm Quentin, this is the artist, Benjy Russell. I'm here near the ending of the show, Dark Big Bang, and we're, just here for a short, simple Q&A. Let me toss my first question at you. So, let's compare, contrast the, opening reception of your show and now coming near the end. Is there any thoughts, perspectives, opinions that you received or might have changed that, compared to the beginning of your show towards the end that, is worth noting or, worth taking into your future endeavors?
By the time the opening got here, I'd been making this work for about 2 years. And the lead up to it, the installation and everything, it was like fairly hectic. So the opening was kind of like this huge sigh of relief that it was finally out there and it was like up and it was ready for people to see and to take in. Throughout the course of the show, it was up for 6 weeks. I was able to do a couple of artist talks and like at the opening, like take people around and give them some like backstory and stuff. So I live out in the country, really isolated. I live in a cabin out in the woods, so I hadn't really gotten a chance to have a lot of conversation and dialogue about the work with other human beings. So being able to give the artist talks was a really nice way of being able to talk about the work and the history behind it, and then the backstory. It's a very complex story. So to be able to give that to people was like a really nice way of getting to like talk about the work and give it context. So that was really great. I was very grateful for the gallery for facilitating that and getting that to happen. And everybody's been very receptive to the work. There's a lot of photographer folks who came through and were very impressed. So yeah, that was nice.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Moving on to our next question now. So, sort of taken from my personal experience, when I came to your opening reception, obviously everything stood out to me, but I guess what I want to point out is the introduction of club music. And I understand, its relation to more light nightlife. I see pieces of your work it's taken from club lights. Mm-hmm. Right. So, I thought that was a sort of decision that I've never heard of until then. Introducing there's typically either the background chatter or just more easygoing music in exhibits that I've been to. But the introduction of club music that was new to me, and it's just I guess just that plays into your process as well. You're making a lot of radical decisions. This is a very again, I've never seen these sort of fourth dimensional works, as I'll describe some of them, but I want to understand the sort of confidence or mindset or perspective that goes into making a form of artwork that's identifiable, somewhat recognizable, but it's still wholly unique to a almost, I'm not going to say it's alienating, but it's hard to digest when there isn't much of a frame of reference besides photography.
Right. I definitely wanted to pull into club music, with the materials. It's a huge route for me as far as inspiration and stuff. And I think the work, it's discombobulating intentionally. Really, there's so much element of realism in there and to it, and then to be able to take this real and actual thing and pull it through these different dimensions and these different filters of reality, so where it's familiar but then also unfamiliar or impossible seeming at the same time. That's just one of my sweet spots. That's one of my favorite places, because you're able to photograph the way that I take a photograph without Photoshop, without editing software. It's kind of taking this moment of magic that happened, because everything in the photograph actually happened. And so you're taking that up and you're showing people that it's a real moment in time. So I just love that effect. And I think it hits people ask me if this is photoshopped, and there's no way that you could Photoshop any of this. Like the camera angles, the reflections, the mirrored reflections, there's no way that you could combine all of those different things in a singular image. And I think it hits a part of the brain that tells you that it actually happened, but then it's also battling with the right side of your brain that's telling you that this is impossible and it could never happen.
Yeah, there's especially like, I really want to point to the commodification of dreams, that one in particular, and just, it's so alien, but in a, I don't know, it's like you said, it's my brain trying to make sense of this while also understanding how impossible this kind of feels. But, well, clearly it is possible.
And you can get lost in the detail, you know, like
Yeah.
trying to make sense out of something that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's definitely, it engages me. It captures my attention. It keeps me staring at it for a long time.
There's a multitude of things that I like use in my photography that I think of, like each one that you use removes the initial image from reality, like a filter that removes it from reality. So like the mirrors and stuff, that like pulls it that like removes it from a layer of reality. The filters and the studio lighting and whether it's like in an indoor studio or whether it's outside in nature, all of those things, all of those elements are things that like remove it from reality. So at some point you're 6 dimensions in and 7 dimensions in from what we all know is reality.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. On to my next question. So, stepping back, behind your process, looking back at another interview you did, it was not briefly touched upon, but I want to kind of retouch on it. How is your photography, playing with nature? Like I know you're, this one in particular.
Yes. Yeah.
You had to wait on a certain seasonal effect, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or, okay, basically I want to understand, like, how does the environment play into your photography? Like the light, the natural lighting, or the greenery, or like the time of day, like how are you interacting with the outside world here?
Well, most of my work is staged outdoors. Like I said, I live in a cabin in the woods. Everything is like, my studio is, acres of mountainous land outside my door. And so like when you're able to sit with the land for every season for over a decade, what April 17th looks like. What June 20th looks like. What flowers are in bloom in August. When the killing frost happens in October. And so each of those things, it's like, if it were a painting, it'd be like a color in your palette that you have to like use intentionally and specifically, except the color is dictated by the seasons and the weather and the outdoor elements. So for this particular piece, there's like a week and a half window in the springtime where some of the trees have just started putting out leaves, but like most of the trees don't have leaves yet, and the chlorophyll hasn't filled out in the leaf. So when the sun lights up the whatever leaves are there, it's like a neon green color, and it only lasts for like a week and a half, and it's the most beautiful shade. You don't see it any other time of year, and I knew I needed that for this one shot. So I had the sculpture built for months. I had like hung it up to be photographed probably like a couple of weeks before this happened, just waiting on the day, waiting on the time, waiting on the weather, waiting on the elements. And so the fact that most of my work happens outdoors, I know like what I want it to look like. And the color, like the tone of light, the color of the sun is completely different in December than it is in like April or May or June. Like it's so blue and crisp in the wintertime, and it's so like saturated in yellow in the spring and summertime. So yeah, I like know the work that's gonna happen, and then I just have to sit around and wait for months until it's time.
Patience, you are a man of patience.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, very much so.
Wow. Okay. Thank you. All right. Moving on. I did a little bit of research into Choctaw traditional beading. I understand the significance of more radial patterns, how painstakingly managing and sewing through each bead, and certain symbols of strength, certain designs as well. And like I'm seeing your like modernized take on this, and I can still identify like the traditional radial patterns, or like that. It was one in the back, right? So basically,
yeah, that one was specifically pulled from like some traditional beadwork and regalia medallions.
So I want to understand more of like your modernized take of it. So like partially understand how these are not made of beads; these are made of
HIV pills.
HIV pills, yes. So like I want to understand more, both of them, like the process wise and like the material.
So specifically beadwork, but in like embroidery and pottery and stuff, there's a lot of storytelling that takes place. A lot of the design elements and stuff are pulled from traditional like Choctaw folklore and mythology. There's like a storytelling aspect to all of it. And so I think I definitely wanted to pull like traditional designs out, but also like incorporate an element of storytelling into all of it. And I think you do that with like using the HIV medication, using like the floral patterns, using like the traditional like repeating diamond pattern. There's elements, so like the repeating diamond pattern is pulled from the eastern diamondback rattlesnake.
Yes.
There's legends that talk about if you're living in harmony with nature, then the snakes were meant to protect, and they'd like keep the rats and mice and stuff away, and they'd warn you if you were about to like impede on them. But like this rattlesnake is also a wildly dangerous animal. So like there's an element of like pulling that like base story with like HIV medication. HIV is such like a harmful, dangerous disease. The medication also has like really harmful, horrible side effects. The like cost of like HIV medication, like all of these costs like up to $30,000 a year. So to be able to take I often think of like my work as being this map, like a Venn diagram of different elements of my life. There is being queer, being Choctaw, being an AIDS survivor, being a widower. And so like each piece has like so many circles of these different elements that are pulled into it that comprise all of the wildly different elements to it.
Okay. And
I like to use a little bit of all of them, like there's like queer aspects, there's two-spirit aspects, there's, all of it in each piece, just a little bit.
Yeah, I'm specifically like, I'm picking out like, at least in some patterns, specifically this one, like a sort of, I'm recalling back to my childhood. I'm seeing the butterfly as a symbol of like a pink butterfly, as a symbol kind of just relating back to either adolescence or just that period of my life. And the more I look at it, the more like, you're very much invoking like both I see in like the storytelling that you're displaying here, but you're making me also imagine what other viewers as well like reflect on themselves and like the sort of like history and patterns that need them as well.
Right. So like the butterfly piece, when it comes to story, like if I was a storyteller in my tribe, that piece is named for my primary care physician, Dr. Anna Person out of Vanderbilt. And so she's the one who like makes sure I'm healthy, makes sure like my everything is up to par. She's like a beautiful person, super smart, and she takes care of so many people. So If I was like creating like a folklore or like a myth out of that, I would talk about this medicinal woman who takes care of the tribe, and she's like a butterfly that flits around all the flowers and makes sure that they're pollinated and watered and are taken care of in the garden.
Okay. I see. I see what you did there. Yeah. Okay. So this may be my last question, but I want to understand like I want to understand like your idea of your audience here and how they're interpreting your work, or say, instances of rather misinterpretation. I want to understand like what is the proper way to view this, or no, not proper way, but how do you want your audience to view this?
Well, I mean, everything is so wildly complex. That's why I really liked the artist talks, is because I was able to like really expound on everything that went into each individual piece. But when I make work, I don't really think of it being in context of other work. So I try to like create images that are, for lack of a better word, iconic unto themselves. So like individually, they're strong, powerful pieces, both aesthetically, design-wise, visually, technically, and then also like the backstory. So if you were to encounter any one of these individual pieces, I think they would hold their own. Just like if you were to approach them without any context, without any story, I think they'd hold their own by themselves. And the more curious you are, the more there is to be found that'll like back up all of that and add like more like flavor and spice to it,
Yeah.
And also like, it's not necessarily for the audience that shows up physically to the gallery in the show while the exhibition is up. A lot of it is going to be, like left behind in a legacy. So it's meant for like people who don't necessarily get to encounter it in person, whether they get to read about it, whether they get to see it in an exhibition in the next 5, 10, 15 years. So I think there's like layers and multitude to the audience.
Okay. All right then. I thank you for your time. I want to thank Tindy Temporary as well for the equipment and space.
Yes.
And that's a Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, thank you.
Woo! Yay!
Q and